What's the class width? Okay, 63. Okay, still people are joining. We'll wait for 2 minutes. So all of you remember, right? Next to next week, you will be having your lab exam. Hope all of you have decided with your project works. One or two teams had to finalize the project. Did they finalize?
Ma'am, we will let you know in 2 more days, ma'am.
2 more days. 2 days is more, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So at least by tomorrow morning.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, let's start. It's 81, 82, slowly increasing. I'll download the attendance in between itself. If I'm not audible, you just at least message me, because yesterday I couldn't even, I didn't notice that I got disconnected. Okay. Okay, so last class we have started with semantic analysis. Yeah. So last class we have started with the semantic analysis phase. So in this phase we just discussed about what happened in the previous two phases, and what is the importance of the semantic analysis phase. So as discussed in the semantic analysis, what was the importance of the semantic analysis phases? The automatic conversion. So that is like either the whenever the highlight over here is with respect to the data types. So the along with the rule, along with the syntax, whether you have satisfied with the rules or not, along with that we have to even satisfy the semantic part. So semantic part means which is nothing but with respect to the data type, whether your expected result itself is the one which you are achieving or not. So that is the one which we are going to verify in the semantic analysis phase. So as an example, we have just seen if in Fortran language, if you are doing addition operation, and both the variables are of these four categories, how it would be converted. So keeping that, we have discussed with respect to typed language. So that means we have just seen based on the how we are going to classify each language. So classification of language, it has been, we can classify the language to be as typed language and untyped language. So when we say typed language, under this typed language itself, we have different categories. We can say it to be as strongly typed language or weakly typed language. Okay. We'll discuss about this untyped language. So what is this untyped language? untyped language means, as the name specifies, there is no specific data type which we are going to specify for the use in that particular language. So based on what is your final input, that is what you are going to assign to that particular content. Based on that, it is. Uh, so, uh, so based on that content, what you are going to specify in that particular input, based on that, it would be taking, it would consider, it would be working according to that. Okay. So one of the example which you can take out is the assembly code. So remember in your assembly program, what when you were doing it, we were directly assigning the value in that particular memory location itself. Based on that content in the memory location, we were just the interpreter was working it out how it has to do the operation. That is, like, if you are adding, how many bytes it has to take up. If you're if it is multiplication, how it has to be done. So you had to explicitly mention, everything has to be explicitly given to the system. So one example which you have already you have executed also, that is the assembly program. Hope all of you remember that, how we were taking it out. Okay. So the assembly program which you have done, that comes under this untyped language. Okay. So moving on to the type language, we have two different classifications. As I have said, strongly typed language. So that means, as the name specifies, strongly typed language, that means you have all different data types which has been clearly given. So before using that particular name, so that name means it could be a variable name. So before using that particular variable name itself, you have to declare it, what data type it is, what data type it belongs to. So that has to be specified beforehand itself. Okay. So based on that, you can, that is based on the data type what you have specified. So if you are having any expression, that is when you are solving any expression, if you wanted any conversions to be done, it can be done during compile time, or it could be done during run time. Okay. So if the conversions, whatever we have discussed here, if these type of conversions are happening, that is both the variables are of integer type, or one is of real type and the other one is of double type. So based on that, how it has to be converted, the other variable has to be converted to which data type. So based on that, your language, we can say it to be as, if it is done during compilation time, we call that those particular languages to be as statically typed language. So that means we can say that strongly typed language, and that too it is statically typed language. Okay. So similarly, if you are trying to have some expressions, that means it is a strongly typed language, where you are having you have specified all the names has been clearly given which type it belongs to. And when you are solving any particular expression, if that type the type conversions are happening during runtime, then we call those languages to be as dynamically typed language. Okay. So that is this part. So coming to this weakly typed language. So weakly typed language, say weakly typed language means, as it specifies here also, we have to specify, we have to use when you are declare, that is when you are using any particular names, you have to declare it. So along with that, there are certain operations which you can do. Say for example, string added with an integer value. All these things could be done. So those type of language. So one such example for weakly typed languages, we can say it to be as Visual Basics. So Visual Basics is the one which is considered to be as weakly typed language. Okay. So example for statically typed language, we can say the C program, C++, Java, all these comes under strongly typed, static, and that too under statically typed language. Okay. Similarly, for strongly typed language, and that too dynamically typed. We can say examples can be like Python, Java scripts. All these can come under this strongly typed language, and that too dynamically typed language. Okay. And under untyped language, the example which we can consider is assembly program, that is assembly code, which you have already executed during your fourth semester embedded systems. Or we can even say it to be as BCPL, which is nothing but basic computational programming language, which is this is now not under use. So this is the language which has come before the C program. So now this is not under use. Okay. So that is about this type language, and mainly the most of the programming languages whichever we take up, all the programming languages are mainly type language, and that too before using any particular name, that is identifiers, you have to specify what type it belongs to. That is how the most of the languages it executes. Okay.
Ma'am, Python is not strongly typed language, ma'am.
Python is strong.
We are not declaring it before.
You are not declaring it, but based on the value what you are taking, that is the reason why I have said based on the content what you take, and all the conversions whatever happening is happening during runtime. So it will come under strongly typed and dynamically typed language. So only during runtime it will know what is the input. You will be taking your that is the Python works based on the input what you give, right? Either you assign the value or you take the input from during runtime.
Yes,
So,
ma'am. Yeah.
only after that it will be executed. That's the reason why Python is considered to be as strongly typed language, and that too dynamically typed. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Yeah.
ma'am, weakly typed is basically like what is the difference between weakly typed and untyped, ma'am? Both seem similar.
The difference between untyped language and weakly typed languages. Untyped language, you will never specify what type of language, that is what type of variable that is what is the type which is going to be used for that particular name, that you are not going to specify at all. And the that means uh, if you remember your embedded program, everything you were explicitly doing it. Say for example, if it is multiplication and all, you yourself were saying that it will occupy 32, that is like if it is 16 and 16 months, you will be you know that it will be occupying 32 bits, so accordingly you were allocating everything. Are you getting the point? So that means you are so based on your operations, that is based on the content what you have given, based on that you are explicitly doing everything. That is considered to be as those type of languages are considered to be as untyped language. So where you when during the programming time you are not specifying any specific data, you are not going to use any specific data type, that is not mentioned, that you can't use it, and based on the input you are going to do the operations also based on that. That is, you are explicitly going to mention everything. As a programmer or as a user, you have to specify everything. That is considered to be as untyped. Weakly typed languages, you have you can partially use there are data types which you can partially use, so that is also there. Along with that, there are certain operations which we are not mainly using, but still these programming languages use it. One such example is strings getting added with integer numbers, which is not appropriate. And in this weakly type language, it's not necessary that you have to explicitly declare also. So it still allows you to use those particular variables. So that's why it is considered to be as weakly type language. Vishnu, did I answer your?
Yes.
Ma'am, in Java also we can add a string and a number.
In Java, you can add string and number. In Java, you can add.
No, ma'am, both are
No,
string.
both should be the strings. You can't add a string with a number. No.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Confused.
Yeah. So, so one more example for what we say, untyped language you can consider to be as Lisp language. In Lisp also, you don't have data types as such, only based on the values what you initialize or take during runtime. Only based on that it will be working it out. And the memory allocation also, it is almost constant. So that's why it does, that also comes under, it is partially like weakly typed and untyped. So mostly we can say it to be as untyped. So we can yeah, that is how the programming languages has been classified. Okay. So shall we proceed?
Yes.
Okay, so moving on to this continuation of this type checking part. So type means which is nothing but data type. So here type checking we can do it during compilation time as well as the runtime. So as in the continuation of it, in the last class I just discussed about the compilation conversion. That is, if you are that is like when you are trying to solve any expression, if the type of the variables are not same, then you can go with the conversions. So when you are converting it, if the conversions are happening during compilation time, so the same example has been taken. So if you are adding two variables in Fortran language, the data types which we have in Fortran language are of four categories. That is integer, real, double, and complex. So if you are adding two integer numbers, then you can there is no requirement of any conversions. You can directly add. So add instruction would be called, and it would be adding it. So I here mentioned I means that it's just for you to understand, it is integer addition is happening. Similarly, if you are adding integer with a real number, then what you have to do? You have to convert it. So which one you are going to convert? So it is implicitly mentioned. So you have to convert integer to a float. So which variable is of integer type? A. So A, which is an FA, that will be stored in the register to be as RAF. That means you are converting the integer value, which is A, to a real type value, and it is getting stored in a register named RAF. And when you are calling this add function, you will be adding this RAF, that is temporarily converted value, float value or real value, with another real value, and the result would be taken up. So since we are adding two float values, we consider it to be as F add. Similarly, integer added with a double, that means here we are implicitly converting the integer value to a double data type. So RA, which is the register, which would the value which is there in the register, A's value. So that will be temporarily only for this particular expression, it is getting converted and temporarily stored in an RAD register. And these two contents would be added. So when you are adding double add function is getting called, and you are adding these two double contents, and the result also would be double. So these type of things you are doing it without seeing, that is during compilation time you are doing it. So that means it is not necessary that the value at that particular time is you will be having the value for that particular variables. It's not necessary always, because most of the time you would be taking the values only during runtime, right? So here during compilation time, when you're doing it, you are doing these conversions based on the data type which we have specified. So that is the reason why we are saying whenever you are using any particular variable names, it has to be declared beforehand itself. So that's the reason why we say strongly data type. Okay. So the mostly used one which you have done is like C program and all you have mostly used. So there C, C++, Java. So there and all you have to declare a particular variable, only then you can use it. If you are not declaring it, it doesn't allow you to go ahead. It generates the error message. So one reason behind that is because all these conversions are happening during compile time. So when you are converting and when you try to convert it, it should know what type it belongs to, right? So that is the reason why it generates the error message during this semantic analysis itself. Okay. So here when you are doing this type conversions during compilation time, it's not necessary you will be having the value. It is done based on the data types. Okay. So similar thing, we can even do it during runtime. Okay. But the problem is, since you are doing it during runtime, you will be having some overheads. So overheads in the sense the computation time will be more, because all these conversions, whatever you are doing, I to D, I to F, or real number to D, all these conversions has to be done during runtime. That is, you take the value from the user and verify whether the expression can be solved or not. If it is not, then you have to convert it. So all these things should happen during runtime. Okay. So the computation time would be more. Okay. So we'll just show you only for the simple adding of two numbers during runtime when you're doing it, how the okay, partial code only has been put up. Is it clear? Can you make out at least this initial part, or at least we'll just discuss this initial part. Okay. So here whenever we say type checking part, which would be nothing but you have to verify which type it belongs to. So it will be having so many if else if ladders. So many else if ladders you will be having it just for solving one particular expression, and all these things has to be done will be done during your runtime. Okay. So here by using this tag function, that is, if you see here, if tag it says, so this tag function is going to retrieve the data type of that particular variable. So based on the input what you have given during runtime, based on that the type of value you have given. So based on that, it verifies whether it is of integer type. So tag of A, so tag it identifies what type of value this variable A is having. Based on that, it is going to check if it is of integer type. Then you are going to verify whether your B is of what type. If it is of integers, if your other variable B, which is of integer type, then you can directly add the values of A and value of B, and you can store it in the variable called C, the value of C. Okay. And then what is the other thing which you have to do? You have to assign the variable C to be as integer type. So by using the tag function, you are assigning the value C to be as integer type. Okay, variable C has been assigned to be as integer type. Similarly, if your B, if suppose A is of integer type, but B is of float type, that is real type, then what would have happened? This if statement would have been executed, you would have entered into the innermost if else statement. So here you are verifying the B's data type. If B's data type is real, what it would have done? It would have executed these three statements should have been done. So what are the statements? First thing is you are supposed to convert the contents. So you are converting, which one you would be converting? Because A is of integer type, so you are converting A variable into real type. So by using this convert to real function, and you are passing your A variable. So this function is going to return whichever integer value you have given, whatever value you have given, that would be converted to real type. And this is being stored in a temporary variable called temp. Okay, and this temp and the value of b would be added. Okay, and the result would be stored in a variable called c. That is, it is taken to be as value of c, and you are assigning the variable c to be as real type. Okay, so these are the three steps which has to be done. Similarly, you can complete the remaining things. Say if your b is of double type, then what would have happened? So here also you would have written if tag equals double. So if it is of double type, then what we are supposed to do? We are supposed to first convert the variable a into double type. So we can make use of convert to double and pass a as the function value. And you can store it in a temporary variable, and you can add the temp variable with value of b and store it in a variable called c. So that means you are taking it to be as value of c. And then you have to assign the variable c to be as which data type. So the tag of c has to be assigned to double. Okay. So based on the tag of the result variable and the assignment operator content, then you can map it up. So whether both are same, then you can assign it. If it is not, then take the value what has to the left hand side's variables data type. So all these things can be done for the similar type of operations would also be there for your assignment operations. Okay, here we have shown only for whatever code snippet has been put up, it is only for a plus b. Okay, no assignment part has been taken care. Okay, so similarly we have the remaining part. So just imagine this is the code snippet which has been generated for dynamic, that is during runtime this entire thing has to be executed. So if you just imagine if you are how many number of expressions you would be having it. So based on that the overhead, that is the complexity during runtime, would be little higher. Okay. So this is the main difference. So in compilation time, when you do all these things, it doesn't take much time when you are executing your program. It would be much faster. But when you do it during runtime, we say the cost is little high. So cost is little high because the runtime would be little more. The runtime checks are little more. So the cost is little higher when you are using with this runtime. But still, there are many programming languages which have been using this dynamic programming, that is runtime type checking. Why? Why they would have chosen for this? By seeing these differences, can you just
to make it easy for the users?
To make it easy for the user. One reason. Yeah. Any other thing? Make it easier, make it convenient. As you said, it is easier for the user. That is the number of variables which you are going to use can also be less when you go with this dynamic. It is user friendly, more user friendly when compared with compile time. You don't have to have many names mentioned. Okay, you can have less number of names given, and you can try out with different type of contents. So it is much easy. But you have to spend some time. That is somewhere you have to compromise. So compromising is the cost will be more. Okay, so that is the reason why Python most of you are liking it. Okay. So just a gist of it. So whenever we say semantic analysis, which is nothing but you have to mention the variables has to be declared. So based most of the programming languages, you have to declare the variable names whichever you are using it. So when you declare it, Is that sufficient? No. When you are declaring a particular variable name, you have to be specific. That is like whether it is a usual value what you are going to store, or whether it is of array type, or whether the name mentioned is of function type, or whether it is a structure type. So all these things has to be specified. So that is the reason why you are having different representations for each and everything. So declaration is a must for most of the language. Okay. When you go with this arrays and all, you have to, especially during declaration time, then also you have to specify what is the size, what you wanted for this array. So size in the sense the dimensions. Similarly, when you go with this functions, the name of the function, you have to specify how many arguments you are going to have. Or when you say how many arguments in the sense, then you have to specify those arguments will be of what type. Each variable has to be mentioned with different data types. And once you finish with this function, what is that content, what you're going to return? So return type. So all these things has to be mentioned clearly. And if you go ahead with your Java, C++ and all, we can even have overloading. So this overloading, when you come up, we can have function overloading as well as operator overloading. So whenever you are using any expressions, you have to make out whether this operator, whichever you are calling, whether it has to be overloaded operator which it has to be called, or whether the basic one has to be called. So all these things has to be clearly mentioned in your programming. So this is what, these are the things when you start compilation, these are the things which the compiler looks for at the initial stages. Okay. So moving on, we have based on these data types, we have been classified into 4 components. I'll just wind up. These are very simple things. So 4 components we have. So what are the 4 components? The first thing is, whenever you take up any programming language, there will be some set of basic things. So basic things means those would be your primitive contents. So when we say it's a primitive contents, so any programming language you take, they will specify some set of characters or some set of numbers or some set of boolean expression, that is boolean contents, say like true false. Some programming languages represent true false to be as hash t hash f. Some programming languages represent boolean contents to be as 1 0, or some represents it to be as t and f. So it depends. Based on which programming language you choose, you can have some basic set of basic contents given. Similarly, numbers. What are the numbers you are going to have? Similarly, characters. The character sets, special characters, everything has to be mentioned clearly. So those will be considered to be as your basic type. Okay. If you take, for example, the Lisp language, that is in the next semester you will be studying in your structure and interpretation of computer programming. So there, the basic data type which you would be having, we can say it to be as cons. So cons means if you have to combine 2 contents together under a single name, then we can say we can use this cons. So based on different programming languages, they have their own set of basic contents. Okay. Basic type we can say. So using this basic type, we can construct the compound ones. So when we say it's a compound ones, which is nothing but array. So one example is array. So array means we can if you wanted different say when according to the definition of array, we can say that we can store the similar, that is same data type contents, many contents of same data type, right? So when you are using this arrays, what you have to be specific is you have to mention the dimension as well as the data type. So based on this dimension and the data type, you can calculate the memory, because how all the values, that is as the array says, we can store many numbers or many contents under a single name. So since you are trying to refer each and every value by using a single name, you should know the address locations. So how do you calculate the address location? It's based on the dimension and What is the other thing? When we are calculating the address of array, if you have to extract the contents. Hello.
Base address and
Base address
the index.
And the index. That's it. That is sufficient.
And data type.
And data type. So this data type is very important for everything which we are going to use. If you have to extract the contents. So along with the starting address, the dimension of it. So dimension means based on the index values, which value you want to extract. Along with that, what type of variable it is. So these three things are important. Similarly, when we go with the string, so string is considered to be as the compound type. So that means by using the basic character, the basic data type character, if you wanted to combine many characters together, we call it to be a string. So how is it different from array? What is the difference between how is strings and arrays different? Can you just highlight? Otherwise it will become boring. Why we are explicitly saying it to be as strings? Why can't I put everything under array itself?
Strings are basically array of characters in ma'am.
Array of characters. Then why we are explicitly saying strings? I can say it to be as array, right?
Strings are immutable, ma'am.
Strings are
Immutable. We can't change every index of them, but in arrays we can do that.
Because character, since it's as Vishnu said, it is array of characters. So each character, it could be 1 byte or 2 bytes based on the machine. Any other reason?
Unlike array, a string has a termination, null character in the end.
Null character in the end. That is one reason. Along with that, the other thing is the operators. So when we say the operators, what you are going to use for arrays cannot be the one which we can use it for strings. Will you agree? Say for example, plus operator, addition operator. So when we say plus for arrays, it will be considered to be as adding two numbers. But the same plus, if you are using it for strings, then we have to use the operator overloading concept, and it has to be concatenation. We have to go with concatenation. That is like in Python and all, it is plus means it goes with concatenation if the two data types are of strings. Similarly, if you go with this less than, greater than, all these operators has to be, if you are going with arrays, it has its own meaning, like you are comparing the contents. But when you go with this strings, you have to overload it. Or I can say it to be as you have to have separate. Say for example, in C and all, if you use, you can't go with this operators. You have to use the functions itself. The different functions has to be used. So keeping these, that is the reason, these are the many reasons, whatever you have specified, like the ending one, we have to identify all those, keeping all these things. That is the reason why we are considering strings as a separate one and arrays as a separate one. Okay. Moving on, we can even have the component type to be as enumerated type. Enumerated type means, remember, enumerated type. When do we use this enumerated type? Come on guys, placements are coming up. Enumerated.
Basically to encode like a number with respect to a entry. Like if we declare a enum and say there are 7 days of the week. Now I can access each of the day as number 0, 1,
numbers. 2. Yes. So if you want to represent, if you want to give integer value to a string, or I can say it to be a string itself. If you want to represent integer values to a string, then you can go with enum. So based on how it has to be required, you can specify it also. So enum, we can use it for representing a string with a number. Okay. So syntax and all, you can just recap. So we say the keyword which we use is enum, and you can use the variable name. Say as you said, if it is week, so I can say it to be as enum weekday. Within curly braces, I can mention to be as Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I can start. So if you are not specifying any value for the beginning one, then by default it will be considered to be as the starting one.
1.
1. Are you sure? It starts with 1. 1 or 0. Okay, take it as a home. By next class, you just come back with a solid answer, whether it starts with 1 or 0. Okay. Moving on to the next one. And it's easy for us to compare also. We can directly use the relational operators for comparing the enum contents. Because the enum, the contents, the strings, whatever you have specified, it will be, it is equated to number. So we can directly use the relational operators itself for comparing. Okay. Moving on to the structures. The other component type is the structure, and its variance means, which is nothing but the union. So structure means we can have you can have a name given, and you can specify different data types which comes under a single name. What's the difference between structure and union?
In a structure, every data type will get its own space. In a union, the greatest data type, like the if I
Highest
have
one will be the
highest one will get the space, and others will occupy that.
Others will share it. Yeah. So it is the structure. If I say basic example, so structure student, if I say, you will be having each student would be represented by using register number, name, say these two contents. So register number, if I am represented by using integer type, and name, if I say it's an array of characters. So if I specify it to be as 50, so if I go with struct, then it would be taken, the entire space would be considered to be as integer plus character size, which is 50. So 50 plus 4, 54 bytes would have been allocated. Whereas in union, instead of struct, if I use union, integer, which is of 4 byte, and array of characters, which is of 50 size, 50 bytes. If I consider each character is occupying 1 byte, then if it is 50 bytes, then the maximum one, which is which occupies is the array of characters, so which is 50. So at a time, you can either use it for integer, store integer content, or you can store character. So the size would be 50 if you go with union. Okay. So that is about the structure part. Coming to the pointers. Pointers, when you use pointers, what happens? Pointers means you are trying to refer the contents by that is the variable whichever you have, it has its own representation. By using star, you can mention it is a pointer type variable. So whenever you declare a particular variable to be as pointer type, it is understood that it can't store any value. It will be pointed to some location. So it can store any address values. So accordingly, the size also would be maintained. Okay, and when you go, if you specifically use, if I say pointers in the sense, Java means we will be using new. New is considered to be as a pointer in Java, and if you say in C and all, if you use, other than the star representation, if you have to allocate the memory, then we can go with this malloc, right? Remember malloc, calloc. So all these are considered to be as pointers. Okay. So coming to the type equivalence. So type equivalence. So as the name specifies, equivalence. So that means we are trying to equate. If you are given two things, whether two things are same or not. So how do you identify it? Say for example, I am just mentioning a struct. So I use a struct some name I give. So struct, say I give some name to be as A, curly brace open. I can have variables, say struct. Again, another variable struct. I'm declaring some tree. I can say it to be as left node, L, semicolon. All syntax is correct. So again, struct, again tree, same thing. I'm just using ditto notation. And right node, so R ends with semicolon. And I can say I have a variable of integer type. So int some value, close the struct. So similarly, I can have another structure given, say struct B of same type. So struct B, where I use say struct tree ls and struct tree rs and int int x, something like this if I give. So how do I say that both are same or not? How do I equate it? So when we go for equating the contents, the first thing is you should equate whether both the names, the structures, both the names are same or not. Okay, so that is, we can say that name equivalence, whether the name of both the structures are same or not. So using that, we can say both the structures are same or not. Okay, other thing is by using the structure of that is by seeing the contents inside the inside the structure. That is by saying that uh, the same type of contents we are having inside the structure. As you see here in this example, we have the structure named A and B. If we have three arguments here, all the three arguments are of structure tree structure tree are int value. Here also we have structure tree ls I have used, structure tree rs we have used, int x I have said. So if you see the structure of it here, according to the structure, both are same. We have two different names given, and inside the structure as an arguments we have three arguments, and all the three arguments are matching. Then we can say that if the structure of both the structures are same, then we can say that structure wise both the structures are equivalent. Okay, if they have similar way of declaration, everything is same. Okay, so if these two things are same, then we can say that both are same. So this is how we would be equating both the structure, if you are having two variables or two functions, something like that, then this is how you would be equating two things together. Both the names are same, that is name equivalence. Similarly, the structure equivalence, whether the contents inside, the contents we can't match it, but the way how you have declared, used, all these things, if it is same or not. Okay, moving on to the last one, which is inference rules. So inference rules means which is nothing but if you are say when you are adding two contents, the same example we'll take up. So if you say x equals a plus b, when you are adding two contents, after adding the two contents, whatever you are assigning it to the variable x, whether it is having the same type or not. Say x equals a plus b. If all the three variables are of same data type, no issues. It would be there is no mapping issues which you can directly infer and you can assign it. If your x equals a plus b and your x is of float type, a and b is of integer type, then what happens? Your a and b would be added because both are integer type. And when you are assigning it, your x is of float type, then what happens? The value whatever has been assigned, it would be converted to real type. Hope all of you agree. So this is what is considered to be as inference rules. So that is what I have told when I was showing the code snippet. The code snippet, whatever we have written, it is only for a plus b part. When you are assigning it to the some variable, then it would be assignment operator based on the type of the variable which you are having towards the left hand side of your equal to operator. Based on that type, it would be converted. Okay. So similarly, that is taken up when we are when you are trying to solve any expressions, and when you are solving these expressions, you have to make sure that all the variables have been declared and it has been inferred properly. Similar case is the one which we take up for the procedures. So when you are having procedures, after how many arguments you have taken, whether the data type, whatever you have specified, is it correct or not. After adding, and when you say return type, so returning content and the return data type, if it is matching, no issues. If it is not matching, can you convert it? So possible converting contents, we can do it. Say for example, in Fortran language, last class we have taken up, when you are trying to add double with complex contents, which is an illegal operation according to the Fortran, which we are not supposed to allow. So those kind of cases, we can generate an error message. If it is not defined, then we can generate an error message. So all these things will be done. All these type checking, all these things will be done during your semantic analysis phase. Okay, so for doing all these things, what happens is, whenever you are having whenever you are declaring a particular variables, we have something called symbol table. Okay, in detail we will be discussing about the symbol table when we start seeing the procedure part, that is functions, when we discuss somewhere around in next chapters it will come. So during that time we will be discussing in detail about the symbol table. So as of now, you just know that whenever we are declaring any particular variables, each variable will be stored in a symbol table. So what are the contents, what the symbol table takes up? The symbol table takes up what is the name of the variable which you have given, what is the identifier name, what data type it belongs to. Okay, accordingly the address part. So address part, internally it will be taken up. We would just say that we would be taking up the variable name and the type of the variable name. If you have the value assigned, then that value also will be taken note. That's it. So these are the three things which will be taken up. Okay, so just remember, whenever you are declaring a particular variables, if it is outside the function or inside the function, accordingly you have the symbol tables used. In that particular block, you would be having the symbols getting stored. Okay, so I'll stop with this. We'll continue in the next class with respect to attribute based grammar, the next part. Till now, just recap basic things.